My name is Matt VanVolkenburg. I'm Canadian, and I first came to Korea in 2001. A friend of mine was teaching English here, so I thought I would come for a year. And it's been a bit longer than that. I got really interested. When I was in university, I studied history, so Korea has lots of history to study, and especially its modern history I found really fascinating. I really enjoyed learning about Korean history, and that's one of the reasons I decided to stay. And as I did research, I started writing it on a blog called Gusts of Popular Feeling, which I started in 2005. I first read about the Kwangju Uprising not too long after I first arrived in Korea. One of my earliest posts was about the Kwangju Uprising. Korea's modern history has always been one part of it, and writing about the Kwangju Uprising was a big part of that. The Kwangju Uprising, I was surprised because I'd never really heard of it, even though I had been aware of the democracy protests and remembered the 1988 Olympics. It was also, it was a very shocking story. There's this great violence carried out by the military against its own people, but also very inspirational in how people stood up to their military. There was such bravery there. But it's also a story in which Americans are involved, and in ways both good and bad. You also had individual Americans, from the Peace Corps volunteers to missionaries to all sorts of activists, both in Korea and outside of Korea, who were working to basically stand up to Chun Doo-won's rule, to the dictatorship in Korea. And David's book gives a very kind of worm's eye view of that whole process happening. And while Peace Corps volunteers, about 2,000 of them served in Korea between 1966 and 1981. And several of them have written books or memoirs, novels, but I haven't actually seen any which explain the whole recruitment process. We kind of see David move from thinking about joining to going through the whole recruitment and training process and being on site. And we also get a glimpse of rural Korea 40 years ago, and his encounter with these values that were in some ways quite similar to his, but also often quite different, and how he kind of dealt with that and learned from it.